Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live stream. Today, we're going to talk about a bit of career advice from two of our fantastic Snowflake data superheroes, Holt Calder and David Garrison. They are with me on this live stream today, and I'm going to invite you to ask them any questions you have, because they're going to share a bunch of tips that will help people in their data career, whether they're data engineers, data architects, data scientists or data analysts. I'm sure they have lots of wisdom to share for all of you. So before I welcome them on, I want to ask our audience today to share where you're dialing in from. So what city, what country are you in? Let us know, hit up the comments. And without further ado, I would love to welcome Holt and David. With the magic behind the screen. Okay. While they are being added to the live stream, let me tell you a little bit about what data superheroes do. They are outstanding community members who contribute to our community forums, to GitHub, to projects. They work for customers or for partners, and they are essential to making our community as great as it is. We have a huge crowd. So hi, Holt. Hi, David. How are you?
Hello. Hi. Doing great.
Yeah, hey, doing awesome. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Excellent. It's really good to see you. And as you can probably see in the comments stream, there are a lot of people, and they are from all over the world. We've got people from the US, from Canada, from India, from England, South Africa. I can't even keep up with everyone coming in. So that's really cool. They're all here to hear what you have to say. So I'd love to start with some introductions. Holt, if you can go first, just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Holt Calder. I'm a data engineering manager at Greenhouse Software. So Greenhouse is a hiring company that produces software for sourcing, hiring, and just really making sure that the best candidate ends up in the job for companies that are looking to grow. So a little bit about myself. Before this role, I was in consulting around data engineering for a company called Interworks. I've been in the Snowflake ecosystem since about 2016 or 2017. And really have enjoyed being a part of the Snowflake Data Superhero program and getting to do events like this and just kind of share my experiences.
Very cool. Thank you. And over to you, David.
Yeah. Hi. I see a fair number of other Bostonians in the chat here, which is cool. I am currently a senior data engineer, and soon to move into a data architect position, and figuring out what that means. But I have been, I actually started out my career more as a mathematician and that didn't find any careers in that space, and made my way into web development, and that didn't work very well. And then as kind of a last chance at that company, I got put on the data team, and I've been doing data things since then. And I've been in kind of every different type of role that has the word data in it since then, and in a fair number of different industries as well.
Very cool. And I think that's one great example of how often it can actually happen that people kind of fall into data by accident and don't come from a strict or like a straight path into data. You know, not everyone, well, you have a mathematical background, but even so, you didn't really choose data until it kind of chose you.
Yeah.
Before we start going into the bunch of questions that I have prepared, quick introduction for myself as well. My name is Eva Murray. I'm lead evangelist with Snowflake, and I'll be the host for today. And I have seen a couple of questions already popping in around, jobs at Snowflake. Just to briefly cover those off, we have a careers page that's great, and that lists all the available vacancies. So if that's what people are after, go there afterwards, because first you probably want to hear from Holt and David about what they're doing with Snowflake and how they built their skills, etc. So it's great to see everyone on here. The first question I would love to start with is, what are the one or two skills that you found most valuable in your career to date? And we'll start with Holt.
Yeah, that's such a great question. Honestly, I think the thing that served me well in my career is learning early on to think about problems from like an architecture standpoint and not necessarily focusing on the how to accomplish a task, but understanding the why behind it. It's really easy, I feel like, in data engineering, and when you're working in a platform like Snowflake that has so many different areas that you could go really deep into, figure out like all of the details about exactly how something like column masking works. But if you focus on why somebody needs a problem to be solved, you're a lot more equipped to go and look at the tools that something like Snowflake has to offer and pick the right thing for the job, instead of being an expert in 3 or 4 areas of a platform and then having those as your tools that you bring to the table every time that somebody asks for something to be done. So I think really understanding, the context, why someone is asking for something, and using that to frame the decisions that you make about how you build it will serve you well.
I love that, because something that I often preach as well when it comes to career advice is for people to understand the whole life cycle of data, not just the bit they're doing, whether it's analysis, visualization, engineering, but what do people do before the data gets to me and what do they do afterwards? And I think what you said plays really nicely with that as well, understanding the why, because right now, at whatever stage you're at, you might not always need to know the why, or it might not always give you a direct connect to the task you're doing, but it will serve you so well further down the track. And I think it's what's absolutely essential to become a leader as well. So thank you for sharing that. And David, I'll pass the question to you as well. What are the one of the skills you found most valuable?
Sure. I've got a lot of different ways to approach this, but kind of not specific to data, not specific to even technology. One of the biggest skills that I've kind of grown is when working with people. Well, firstly, just getting better at working with people, but in particular, not blaming people when doing code review the code, not the person. When you're talking about something that happened, really kind of doing the mental gymnastics of not saying this person did this thing and that caused the thing to go, the thing to break, but really keeping to facts and avoiding blame is a really big deal. I've had my own share of breaking things and going into the postmortems and, nobody's sitting there pointing their fingers at me, and that's really helpful for working with people in general. And I've had my share of these things happening in data for sure. On a slightly more technical side, for me, I mentioned I kind of started as a mathematician. Having a bit of a mathematician's mindset has been a really important skill for me in data. There's a lot of kind of transferable mindsets. Writing a mathematics proof involves really thinking about edge cases and building elegant solutions, and kind of making things foolproof in an interesting way that's hard to replicate in the data world, but that sort of mindset has been very useful.
And I love that you use the word mindset, because for me, as somebody who came from a totally not data background, it's always been like, oh, I didn't study math. Can I actually do this? Or, not having done the technical. But there are so many ways into data. And I want to, call this out as an encouragement to people in the audience who might not have done the typical technical route, or maybe computer science or mathematics or statistics. There are so many roles in data and adjacent to data. Companies like ours and yours, there are so many people supporting what's happening with data who might not be data engineers or analysts themselves. They might work, in marketing or other supporting functions as well. So don't underestimate that.
For sure.
But yeah, I really like what you said about feedback as well. It's so important to get feedback, because it's the only way to get better. And somebody already quoted you saying, oh yeah, Veronica, she said, attack the problem, not the people. 100% David Garrison. So very nice. Great. Okay, I'm trying to also keep track of the questions from the audience. There's a lot of people really engaged, which is great. And clearly a lot of people interested in what you're doing and the kind of roles you have. So, keep the questions coming. We'll try to tackle them as we can, but we'll also be able to engage afterwards on the comments as well. So when you think back to your earlier career, did you maybe have a mentor or a manager or a colleague who gave you some advice that you thought, now, wow, that was invaluable, and I want to share that? Let's start with you, David.
Sure. Yeah, I certainly did. I've had a few mentors over time, but one of the early on pieces of advice that I heard that has stuck with me is I had an early on project that I was working on. I mean, it was just like change the data type on this column. It was something super simple. And it came around to our bi-weekly demo to show off what we'd done. And I said, I don't really have anything to show off. It's not exciting to look at. It's not interesting. And my manager at the time said, like, you changed the data type. Okay, so show a diagram that shows before, and now the new system where you've removed a step of transforming data types. Like, it's not that exciting of a thing, but you can show it was more complicated. Now it's less complicated. It's a simple change, but show off your work, make it interesting, if nothing else, for your own sake of finding value in your work, but also showing off that you've done something. And it's different than just bragging, but it's good to be able to present your work in a way that makes it look valuable.
I really like that. What about you, Holt? What's some advice that you would like to pass on that somebody shared with you?
Yeah, I've been really lucky to have some amazing mentors. In my time working at Interworks, I had a mentor named Brian Bickle that ran our data practice. And early on, he just kind of instilled in me the idea of being open to trying anything. So like working in the data world, there's a lot of things that fall under that umbrella. And there's obviously some areas that are a little bit more popular and things that you just naturally gravitate towards. But you can really learn a lot from anything. So early on in my career, I was looking at areas of Snowflake that nobody was really interested in at the company that I was at. So that was kind of early semi-structured parsing of data at a time where it wasn't the default approach, which it is now. So just kind of going into areas that folks on the team weren't necessarily excited about exploring and bringing back the value that it created really paved a path for me to be able to just build a career and show that, good ideas can come from anywhere. I think being open to just about anything that comes across your desk and trying to use it as a learning opportunity is advice that I received that I would definitely give to anyone else.
Yeah, I love that. And I'd like to add one of my own, because I had this one piece of advice that I still use all the time. And it was one of those very first experiences once I finished university, and it was always draw a picture. And my manager at the time said that because we were discussing requirements, and at the beginning, of course, I knew nothing. So I was just sitting there observing these meetings, and people were discussing things, and you could just tell they weren't all talking about the same thing. So he would always go to the whiteboard and draw some boxes and lines and say, okay, so this is program A, this is program B, and this is how the data flows. And people could finally agree on something because they were all talking about the same box. So that would be what I'd add here, always draw a picture. Mm-hmm. Let's bring in a couple of audience questions. So one was from John Dunson. Have you seen someone from a sales or account management career move to a data science career? And is that possible? Holt, do you have any thoughts on that, or David?
Yeah, I actually can jump in on this one because my original career plan was to go into sales or account management. So the internships that I did were all sales related. I started out at a company called Rackspace in the sales organization, just seeing how people grew into being an enterprise account rep. And I think that that path is definitely something that's possible. If you look at like the sales domain, the data related to it is something that directly moves the needle. It's how the company makes money. And most mature sales organizations have a function of data that supports their performance. So there's a really great path for you to kind of get your toes in the water, figure out like what kinds of dashboards your managers are looking at, how they're quantifying performance, and then how those numbers are calculated. So I totally think it's possible.
Oh, yeah. I have a more broad approach to that question, which is I've seen a philosophy, somebody got a philosophy degree, move into data. I've seen people move from HR into data. I've seen somebody move from like linguistics and basically English into data. So yeah, you can do it from sales. Sales has data, sales has reports. There are definitely ways to kind of flow there, but also there's nothing that's like really blocking anybody from moving into it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I actually want to weave that together with another question that a few people have asked about, in terms of getting into data engineering around Snowflake and that kind of stuff. And I'm going to get both of you to pitch in on how you learned about Snowflake. But I want to start off with saying that we have a lot of resources out there. We've got our community, but we also created what we call the Data Cloud Academy. And we have one for data analysts, so that's a very entry-level kind of start for people who have a understanding of data, but maybe haven't explored Snowflake much at all, for them to learn more about Snowflake. And there's a lot of content. I think it's about 3 to 4 weeks worth. So every day you do one module. And we also have the same Data Cloud Academy for data science. So that's a 3-week course with daily modules or weekly modules that you can complete. And it's all free. You just sign up. I'm going to share the links with our team to post them in the chat for everyone to use. And that can be a really good start to just explore some of the documentation and videos and tutorials that are out there. But I want to hand over to Holt and then David on how they started learning about Snowflake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, wrong order. Go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. Well, I was pretty lucky to be introduced to Snowflake in my consulting role. So the data practice that I worked in had historically supported projects for Tableau deployments. So, making a data warehouse, making sure that it's performing in a dashboard, and then kind of cleaning up and going on to the next one. And the director of our practice found Snowflake, really was excited about the fundamental change to the way that compute and storage were delivered, and thought that it would be transformational for that specific kind of project, which was, Tableau dashboards, which it was. And I was one of the people that got to kind of explore it, figure out how it worked, look at, how we want to deliver different virtual warehouses to different dashboards, different departments in a company. And that was really it for me. It was just kind of being a little bit at the right place at the right time.
Sure.
What about you, David?
Yeah, my journey into Snowflake. So I started at my current company about 4 years ago, and they picked up Snowflake right as I was they were going through kind of the paperwork of it right as I was joining. And nobody else at the company really immediately raised their hand to say I'm gonna do this and learn this and become the expert. So I did that. I raised my hand, and I didn't know even at the time that Snowflake was as big as it was or would become as big as it is. That's a confusing sentence, but it just the act of kind of walking up and saying, yeah, I'll help configure the our initial roles and accounts, and I'll help configure hooking up to our various data sources. That made me the expert at the company. It really moved me into a subject matter expert position, got me involved in the community. So it's been kind of a very interesting journey, but it really started with just raising my hand and say, yeah, I'll learn the thing.
Yeah. And that's often how it happens. And I think sometimes people might feel that, oh, I'm too late. There's somebody already doing it, but you're never too late, because every single person brings a unique combination of, their perspective, what they know, what they can do, how they do things, and then their technical skills. So if anyone is thinking about, oh, I want to get into this, I don't know where to start, it might be, okay, learn a little bit, but also it's never been easier to connect with people out there. So you've got LinkedIn, Twitter, and other platforms, be it GitHub and the community, where you can connect with experts directly, reach out to Holt and David, connect with them on LinkedIn.
Yeah, for sure.
And also, if you have specific questions, especially when they're specific, people love helping. So if you have a question on how to get started and you can share what you've tried already and what you'd like to end up doing, you will probably get a bunch of responses. So use social media to your advantage to connect with experts in the field so that you can get your name out there, but also it's much easier to get started. When I think back to 10, 15 years ago, that was all a lot harder, and it was much more traditional. You didn't have as many alleyways to go. So I just wanted to put that out there. Okay, there's actually been a couple of questions from people around Snowflake certifications, and I believe you guys have done some of that, right?
I've done a couple, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to share what that's been like?
Yeah, I've actually done beta testing for some of the tests or the certification plans. Yeah, I would actually, when people ask the typical, how do I get into Snowflake? What are some resources? One of the things that I will point people to is the free preparation. I forget what it's called, but if you go and look up these core certification, there's these are the list of things that you should know about in order to get their certification. It's a really good list of go through these bullet points and learn about Snowflake. It takes you through the documentation, it takes you through examples, it takes you through all sorts of stuff. And then the actual certification test, it certainly requires a pretty good level of knowledge in Snowflake. I think it's a very good certification program, personally.
Cool. Anything you'd like to add, Holt?
Yeah, I've done the Snow Pro Core, contributed a few questions to that exam as well, and it's one of the better certifications that I feel like I've sat. It really does capture the skills in the areas of the platform that would really set you up for success if you were going from 0 to Snowflake superhero. So I feel like that's a great place to start, and the study guides that people in the community have created are excellent and really help you set yourself up to pass. So I would definitely recommend pursuing them.
Nice. Okay, so somebody just shared the certifications link, and you've use the study guides as well. If you had to turn the clock back 5 years, so we're going back to 2017, we've already talked a lot about things we recommend people should do. What would you do differently? What would you avoid doing if you were back in 2017, knowing what you know now? Let's start with Holt.
It's tough. I wouldn't change a whole lot, honestly. I feel like I've had a great experience in my career and have gotten to work on projects that I thought were really interesting. I think maybe in 2017, I was a little bit more interested in the world of data science than I am now, and I wouldn't have pursued that area as intently. Nothing against it, but I'm definitely right where I should be in the data engineering world, and yeah, that's probably it. I'd say maybe the takeaway from that is to not be excited about what is the new hot career in the data industry, and focus on what you're actually interested in. In 2017, I feel like everything was data science centric, and data engineering was kind of taking a back seat. And I'd say focus on what you're actually interested in, and tailor your career to that.
Sounds good. What about you, David?
Yeah, I kind of had a similar experience. But 2017 happened to be about the first time I heard about Snowflake. It was, and I didn't really know what it was about. They were just trying to basically market to my company at the time. And they did a Star Wars pre-showing of whichever Star Wars movie was coming out at the time. And I really wish that I had kept my Snowflake branded lightsaber. I lost it in one of my moves, and really wish I still had that. It would have been awesome to show off at the summit. But right, more seriously, yeah, honestly, I think I would have been a little bit more gung-ho about stepping up and becoming an expert. I kind of already mentioned that that's how I made my way into Snowflake. And there's a bunch of minor things I might have not taken down that production system that one fateful day. But I don't have a lot of things that I really regret, because it's been a very cool journey through a lot of different realms for me.
Yeah. That's really good to hear. I guess also what we did 5 years ago made us all end up where we are today. So
right.
That's just how things happen. Now, I'm going to do a little prelude to the next question, because there have been a few people asking about certifications, getting into certain data roles, data engineering, data science, data analyst, data architect. And my personal advice would be, yes, doing the certifications is great because you can test your knowledge and you have proof of what you can do, but don't wait for that. If you are exploring opportunities, if you want to get involved in the community, if you want to reach out to people, you don't have to be certified first. Like it's really good to have, but it's not the most important thing. I think if you show interest and the right attitude and you are just getting involved, you will benefit from that immensely, even if you're not certified. Saying that, what I was wondering, because both of you have progressed in your career as data engineers, so if somebody wanted to get into data engineering or is in the process of looking at data engineering roles, do you have some interview tips for them? Any specific tips for data engineers? And let's start with you, David.
Sure. So one thing that comes up a lot in interviews is the technical interview. And for me personally, I kind of enjoy those sorts of weird challenges that sometimes come up. And for me, I like to do a lot of like, there's a bunch of different websites that do weekly coding challenges. A new one is Frosty Friday, which is Snowflake specific challenges. And getting good at just seeing a weird problem and being able to think about different approaches to it is surprisingly useful in the interview process. So that's more on the technical side. But I personally find that to be very useful, and solving those puzzles a game rather than like dreading it.
Yeah, that's a good point. What about you, Holt? What would you suggest?
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like data engineer, the title could mean like any number of things depending on the company. So I'd say focus on the areas of data engineering that you're really interested in and make sure that you're applying to an organization that focuses on those things and views the role the same way. So I guess like an example of that would be like a data-driven organization or a team that has like a really well built out data practice where they're valuing the output of the data engineering team, like across the business, whatever like team is making decisions, your work will directly relate the decisions that they make. So yeah, I think that just making sure that you're like focusing on what you want to be doing and lining up the job that you're interviewing for to actually accomplish those things would be like my main goal and takeaway there.
That's really helpful. And I'll add a small one as well. I think it's always good to include a demo, even if you're not asked for it. I did a demo in my interview for Snowflake, and it was a bit like it was serious, but the topic was a bit silly. I talked about the pineapple canning industry in Hawaii, but it makes it memorable and it shows people that you're really keen, you're making an effort to understand, the product or the process, whatever it might be. So with the things that Holt and David have said and the things we shared, the resources we shared, you could probably find some really cool things. Maybe one of those Frosty Friday challenges and say, hey, I went through this and this is what I learned from it. So don't underestimate the power of a demo.
Part of the idea of the Frosty Friday challenges, by the way, is to like put your version of the code out in your source control and like put it out into the world. So yeah, that's a super good way to just say like, here's the thing that I wrote. It kind of has a second benefit as well. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, cool. And shameless plug, we will be growing the data engineering team at Greenhouse. We have a role that's going to be posted soon. So if anybody out there would like the chance to work together, we'd love to meet you.
Excellent. And that's a beautiful transition to the last question I have. And that's about your suggestions for how people can network, because I know sometimes it can feel a bit forced or people can feel a bit uncomfortable putting themselves out there. But how do you network, and what do you think is a good way for people to reach out to you or people like you? We'll go with Holt first.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of great community around Snowflake on LinkedIn. So you can definitely add me, add anyone from the superhero group. We like to help. Other than that, get involved in your local community if there is a presence around data engineering or Snowflake. Used to frequent the meetups pre-COVID, but yeah, just get out of your comfort zone. I think that people in the data engineering space are generally more welcoming than you would assume, and everybody likes to share and learn from each other. So if you're out of your comfort zone, feeling maybe a little uncomfortable in a new room, it's probably a good thing.
Cool. What about you, David?
Yeah, the story that comes to mind for me was when I went to my first meetup in Seattle. I sat in the front row of the event, and I was the only person in the front row. And after the meetup, the speaker came up to me and said, "Hey, I really appreciated that you were like up there and, you know, engaged in the talk." So a lot of times it's just being there and doing, you know, getting out there, meeting people,
Yeah.
being engaged. In the more modern world of a lot more remote work, answering questions on forums and Stack Overflows and actually engaging in conversation is like I've met a fair number of people that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really important to just show up, right? Because from there's so many opportunities as well. Okay, so to wrap this up, I do want to invite everyone in the audience to check out our Data Cloud World Tour. So we are coming to many, many cities, bringing the best of our summit content and new content as well to cities around the world. We're going to have the team post the link where you can find the cities near you. It's going to start this month, actually, not far from now, and it goes all the way through to November. And I think, David, you might be at the event in London, right? Yep. I'll be there as well. I will be in Paris and Amsterdam and Berlin as well. Those events are great for meeting people from Snowflake, but also many other people and partners, and just to network and to learn more about Snowflake, to learn about use cases, about partners, etc. So they are free if there's one nearby. It's a really good way to get started with your Snowflake journey, if that's what you choose to do. So we'd love to welcome you there. You can see the link in the comments now. So feel free to sign up and join us there. And with that, I want to leave the last words to both of you. David first, then Holt. Anything else you'd like to share or suggest to the people watching?
Sure. The last bit on networking that I didn't get to is you can message people on LinkedIn. Every person who has messaged me about, you know, technical questions, I will almost always engage, and so will most of the data superheroes. We are available to to message. Hit us up.
Great. Holt?
Yeah, I guess like the last thing I would include, you kind of alluded to it, Eva, was the things that you're doing today are going to be the things that influence where you are in 5 years. So just make sure that you're, you know, trying your hardest, focusing on growth and becoming the best that you can be at whatever you're doing. And you'll probably be happy when you look back. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much to both of you for joining us. And thanks to everyone in the audience for all your questions, your comments. It's been really fun, really engaging. And we hope to see you next time. Take care, stay safe, and bye-bye.